Have you ever wondered what happens to those beautiful concept cars that we see at the car shows and on social media, like here on YouTube, somehow don't look exactly the same when we see them on sale at the local dealerships? What happens to them? Where does the beauty go? There is actually a good reason for it, and who better to tell us what happens behind closed doors than one of the most recognized car designers of our times, Henrik Fisker. Henrik will be here in just a second, but before that, a quick reminder that this video and this channel is sponsored by KANDI AMERICA. Check out the most affordable electric car in America, K27, for a limited time launch price of under $10,000 after the federal tax credit, or their second model, K23, for under 20. Deliveries start in a few months, so make sure to reserve yours by using the link in the description of this video. And by OptiWatt, a free service that will report how much actual energy your Tesla is using, save you some money by adjusting your charging times, and tell you how much you're already saving by using electricity over gas. It's completely free. Sign up using the link in the description of this video. I'm so excited. I couldn't wait to talk to you about this because I genuinely don't know the answer here, and I think you're one of the few people who can kind of shine the light on this. And as you probably heard in the introduction, I told you that, and I think a lot of my viewers can relate. You know, you go to an auto show, you see this beautiful concepts, this is what car's going to look like in 5 years down the road. Everything's really slick and nice and you can't wait, and then 5 years pass, you see the car in production, you go like, what happened? Okay, so tell me, what goes on between the beautiful concepts that we see and the reality when the car goes in production? What goes wrong there?
Well, I think there's a difference between, you go to a giant store and buy something you have seen from a big brand that maybe showed something at a show somewhere in terms of some clothes, and then of course they got a mass market and send it out, versus going to a tailor. So I wore my concept jacket today that was made by one guy for me, and he made it exactly the way that it was supposed to be, and that was it. There was no committees and there was no mass production that had to be done. So I think when you think about that, you can look back into cars, and in big or in any car companies, you have so many different groups that have a say. So when you show a concept car, a lot of times what happened in the larger companies is they kind of just hand it over to mainly the design department, and the design department gets really excited, and they maybe lower the roof so far down that you can barely sit in the car, and the trunk ends up being so small that you can't really fit anything. And when you show a really cool concept car, notice that nobody really measures the trunk, and a lot of people actually don't get to sit in the concept car, and at least not in the back seat. So therefore all those things get kind of disregarded when you see the vehicle and you go, wow, I want that vehicle. And then of course when it goes through all the production and everything else, suddenly the roof gets raised up and the wheels get smaller so they can fit the right turning radius, and the base model can be cheap enough because the tires can't be too big, and all these type of things.
So a lot of it is actually out of hands of the designers. And how does this process go? I mean, obviously designers want to keep the beautiful design, and then engineers, I'm assuming marketing and so come in. How bad are those fights in the boardrooms there, where you kind of have to fight for the design, but at the same time having to concede to the fact that the trunk size is too small, or the cheaper version of the car is not going to work for the tires and so forth. What goes on into that, and how easy or hard it is to make compromises on both sides?
Well, I don't want to sit here and whine for the designers,
Okay.
Reality is a designer is a professional person, and that designer, in my view, has an obligation to try to work with the rest of the company, be it engineering or marketing or whoever. And I think what really is the job of a designer is to not only convince those departments that this is the right direction, but also find the right compromises. And I think you do have examples out there of vehicles that either look as good as a concept car or pretty close. You, of course, also have examples where they don't. And sometimes I will also say the whole point of some concept cars that are really radical is not necessarily to put them into production, but rather to give sort of a sign of where the future could be going. So if you see a concept car with no steering wheel, the idea here was not that it was going to come out next year without a steering wheel, but really what happens when we have fully autonomous cars? How could the interior look like? So we kind of got to compare apples with apples. Now, I would say I've been involved in some cars that came out exactly like the concept car. You know, when I designed the original BMW Z8 sports car, there was really no change from the concept car to the production car when I designed the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. The same here. There's a few millimeters here and there, but I also think that's because the engineers were involved in both these vehicles early on, and also both these companies, of course, design is a very important part of their brand. But you may see other companies where design just doesn't have the same importance for the company, and therefore they're willing to water down the design, and they were just happy to get the applause when they showed the show car. And then I think also finally, unfortunately, there is some car companies where the leadership simply don't have the taste and the understanding for what it means to bring out a truly amazing emotional product, and they just don't understand how much it ruins the design when they make certain changes to it.
So we talked about, the involvement in other departments, marketing, engineering, and so forth. How much do potential customers get involved? I know in our first video we talked about, focus groups and so forth. But you told me that, hey, by the time the car goes in production, what people thought in a focus group, 2-3 years ago, may not be the same opinion of the very same people. Now, in this case, is there, do you involve, the potential customers or more likely customers, and how much of their opinion matters in this whole process of watering down the concept car design?
So I will say no, I don't. And in the companies I've been in, very rarely have I seen it been done or successful. And exactly to your point, you're trying to envision what is going to happen and in 2 or 3 or 4 years from now. So I actually don't think it really works. I don't think, Picasso had people coming up on the street telling him how he should make his painting. I don't think a chef invites people in and asks them to, put ingredients into his food. I think there's a certain excitement, both for the designer, but also for people to actually have somebody come out and deliver something that might be a little extreme or unique in the beginning, but then they understand the ideas behind it. I mean, in the end of the day, I think that's for me what's the exciting part. I think the cars which I have seen in my career, which were heavily focus groups, have been, there's some example of disasters out there. I hate to point too many cars out, but I even think Ford would agree that the Ford 500 was not a particular successful vehicle. And I remember at Ford that was extremely focus grouped, to an incredible extent. And then, by the way, it did extremely well in the focus group. But when it actually went for sale, it didn't. And maybe that's something to do with it was several years later. So I think you have to be very careful. And also what's very difficult, I think, is to actually interpret people's comments in the right way. And I think we have all once in a while seen something we got a little shocked about in the beginning, or we didn't like, or we thought was a little strange. And then a little later we go, actually, it's not too bad. And then maybe in the end we go, actually, I really like that. So if you get that first reaction negative and now you cancel it, and it turned out maybe it was a really, really unique thing that people simply just had to get used to and understand and fall in love with.
Okay, very interesting. Now you mentioned that how the concepts sometimes are not meant to go in production necessarily, but to showcase where the direction of the company, whether technologically or design-wise, is heading. Now, has it ever happened where a company presents a design like that, but the feedback from the potential customer is so good that they kind of almost forced to consider and go in production with this? And a good example is, I'm sure you've seen the latest concept car from Sony, which usually has no business making cars, but the feedback has been so good you know, it looks like they're actually considering it. Have you ever seen a case like that, or a few cases where, you know, the feedback from the public was so strong that the company decided to just go for it and basically meet the demand?
So the difficult with that today is that when you show a concept car, if you have done no engineering whatsoever on it and people say they really like it, unfortunately, it probably will take at least 3.5 to 4 years until you're able to make that car. And that again means that what people said by the time it comes out 4 years ago is maybe not what they actually mean today. So that's the one side. The other side is a lot of people will say when they see a really sexy sports car, wow, I really like it. I really would want it. I could imagine buying it. But then when the actual car comes out, you know, it turns out that they're not really in the market for a sports car, or it's a little too expensive, or whatever it might be. So I think it's rare it happen these days. It might have happened more in the old days. What we do see is, I think that somebody shows a concept car and they get surprised about the good feedback, and then they may use some of those elements from that concept car in their future designs. But I also think we have seen some examples of companies putting out concept car and they were really convinced about it, and they were so convinced they've already started the process of implementing some of these design features. Could be, for instance, a redesigned front end with a larger grille or whatever it might be. And then it turned out it got so many negative responses, but now it was too late because they already signed off the tooling for that, you know, new design change or whatever it might be. So I think you can see it goes both ways. But the idea generally that car makers show a concept car and if everybody likes it, they'll make it, I think is very rare.
Now, I know you just introduced, you premiered your Fisker Ocean at the CES a couple of months ago. Talk about the experience with that car. Have you made any changes so far with the design? I know you're heading out to a production at some point. And do you think there will be a few changes here and there? Or do you think it's pretty production ready as far as the concept that you used when you were designing it in the first place?
So Alex, I know it's very production ready. So,
Okay.
but yeah,
I like that answer.
Earlier, you know, we show a design is actually the car we want to do. So, I mean, when you go through the development, the final fine tuning of a vehicle, there may be things you change in millimeters, but the vehicle you see here, the Fisker Ocean, that's the vehicle we are making. We're already in the, you know, in the process of late stage development. The vehicle you see here actually drives on a fully finished, fully engineered, durability tested EV platform. It's got the actual powertrain in it, both their actual battery pack and everything else. So all the proportions, the layout, everything is exactly the way you're going to see it. So there's really no visual change to that vehicle.
Well, when I saw it myself at CES, I absolutely fell in love with the interior. There is, you know, my heart belongs to your emotion, which I absolutely love as well. I hope that goes in production at some point. Let me know which concept car has disappointed you the most and why. And by the way, if you are interested in everything that's going on in the world of electric cars, you came to the right place. So don't forget to click on that subscribe button and the bell notification icon so you don't miss anything moving forward. All right, looking forward to all of your comments. Other than that, see you guys next time, and remember to stay charged.